Hi, so we are students from the Psych 471 Adolescent Development class, and our presentation today is on the wellness workshop outline that we created as a response to um, the escalated mental health crisis from COVID-19. My name is Emma Wisman.
Hi, I'm Andrew Kang.
I'm Jalen Wilkins.
I'm Kathleen.
So here's a quick outline of what we will be discussing today. So we will begin with a broad overview of what our problem and opportunity is. Then we will move into research by exploring the insights from the research literature, as well as insights from adolescent interviews that we conducted throughout the semester. Then we will connect our research to our solution through our point of view statement, and then move into our workshop proposal and our conclusions and summary to put it all together. So we'll begin with our overview, where we will define our task and the driving questions behind our research and our prototype development. So our task was to help devise a prototype that will help adolescent students at Chapel Hill High School in North Carolina. Our motivating question for our research and our eventual prototype was, what challenges is Chapel Hill High School specifically facing in fulfilling their mission of educating and empowering students as leaders, given the unique challenges and opportunities in adolescent development. And to talk more about the research that we found on that, I will pass it over to Andy.
Hello. After defining our research motivating question, we looked upon peer-reviewed articles to learn more insight on what might affect adolescent development, whether it was technology, peer relationship, or a parental relationship. And what we learned was that children need validation more than ever before from both their parents and their teachers. And I think they're just in a position of feeling really discouraged and lack motivation from being isolated during COVID. We also learned that due to COVID-19, children feel like they've lost control of their lives and they're not in control, leading to a fear of uncertainty. I think this is a new feeling that a lot of children are feeling, like this feeling of anxiety that they've never felt before. We also learned that, so prior to our research, there was this misconception that that mobile devices are one of the main causes of children developing mental health struggles. But what we learned was that it's actually the opposite, where mobile devices are used as coping methods for a lot of children. In addition to that, digital technology are allowing children to have more exposure to public mental health services. So we end up interviewing one of the students that goes to Chapel Hill High School to learn more about what students are experiencing now. And through this interview, we were able to learn that one of the biggest factors that impacted mental health for the kids was isolation. And I think because of isolation, not being able to see your friends or speak to anyone else besides your inner family members, caused a lot of anxiety and sadness. There was also a lot of, this connects to what I was saying before, uncertainty. For a lot of people who are going to high school, the transition between middle school to high school. Another issue that a lot of students are facing was motivation during pandemic. I think all of us are really facing that. Due to the pandemic starting, the student was talking about how the pandemic started when she was a freshman, and because Chapel Hill High School contained kids from all different districts, it was difficult for her to make friends. And because the pandemic happened in freshman year and she wasn't able to meet people in her sophomore year, and she jumped back into school in class junior year, and she was talking about how she didn't have too many friends and it was difficult for her to make friends. So passing on to Jalen.
So as we looked at our research and what we were finding from our interviews, we started thinking about what we wanted to do and why we wanted to do it. And that led us to come up with our point of view statement. that students at Chapel Hill High School need support in wellness education to address growing mental health concerns because the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a mental health crisis among high school students. So
sorry.
I will pass beginning of our workshop proposal over to Emma.
Sorry, thanks, Jalen. I got a little excited there. So for our solution to this problem, we came up with a workshop outline for Chapel Hill High School or any other high schools who are interested to potentially develop. And based on the research we looked at and the problem solution we identified, we think that this program could be really beneficial in facilitating mental health education for these students. So introducing the Wellness Workshop. The Wellness Workshop is a half-day event where students can gather together to learn how to promote mental health and just learn about other aspects related to mental health, whether that be creating healthy habits, having conversations with friends and family members who are struggling with mental health, and so much more. High school students are struggling with anxiety and depression at greater rates than ever before as a result of COVID-19. And this is something that we saw in our research. And the school is in such a strategic position to aid students in coping with this, as students spend a majority of their time either in school or with friends from school. And we think that having a fun, large discussion-based event surrounding mental health and wellness could make mental health education accessible to students who don't receive it elsewhere. And also it could help students take this issue more seriously and see it as something that shouldn't be stigmatized, but instead conversation around it should be embraced. So our workshop outline includes 4 parts. It would begin with an opening presentation, followed by an assessment or personal inventory session, and a Q&A with some of our presenters. Then students would move into breakout sessions where they can explore more of their interests regarding mental health and wellness. And it would end with students going back to their classes and continuing in a brief discussion time with their peers to think about next steps and just reflect on what they've learned. So I'll begin by talking about our opening presentation. Our vision for this is that students would gather for an assembly-like event and hear from a speaker, whether that be a counselor, a teacher, some kind of guest speaker from the community, about what mental health is and why it should be important. So this is when speakers will also communicate the various resources that the school has to offer students who are struggling with mental health or who just want to have more conversations about this topic. And we decided to leave this part intentionally broad because there are so many issues within the realm of mental health that are impacting schools, and we want to give schools the flexibility to decide what needs to be addressed in this opening part. And just knowing that students will dive deeper into the topic of mental health throughout the day as more niche topics are being introduced in breakout sessions and class discussions. And we envision this opening presentation time being about 30 to 45 minutes in length, long enough that students are receiving information that is very beneficial to them, but short enough that we are able to keep their attention span and that they find it fun and interesting.
So after our opening presentation, we will provide a wellness assessment for students to fill out. This is kind of just like a short little self-assessment for them to take note of their mental and physical wellness at the time, just so they can kind of see where they're at. And after that, there will be time for them to ask questions. Wellness is just such a broad topic and it affects everyone differently. So having that time for students to ask questions will kind of allow them to see like what aspects of wellness they might be struggling in and might want to be better at, or where they're kind of doing okay. And that will help them just understand more. It'll also kind of help break down that stigma a little bit of mental health and like seeking help and just being able to find more resources.
In order to go through some important aspects of wellness in greater detail and to allow the students to have some autonomy in the program, we decided to incorporate breakout sessions in which students may pick which session they want to participate in based on their own interest. We have provided 5 potential topics for these breakout sessions, including time management and procrastination avoidance, creating healthy habits, presenting different mental disorders, breaking down the mental health stigma, and the physiological implications of mental distress. We have also included a section that provides some potential aspects of each topic that could be covered within the school's breakout sessions. For time management skills and procrastination avoidance, studied strategies could be discussed with an emphasis on the importance of taking breaks, as well as tips for memory encoding and retrieval methods. For creating healthy habits, you could touch on the importance of establishing a sleep schedule, nutrition, mindfulness, and joyful movement. For exploration of different mental disorders, you could provide a biomedical navigated exploration of different mental health disorders, such as anxiety and depression. In order to help destigmatize mental health, here's what you can provide for students. You could provide some local or school-based mental health resources and normalize that it is okay to ask for extra support. To help students comprehend and make connections between their mental health and physical health, you may discuss the physiological responses to mental distress, such as parasympathetic and sympathetic responses, somatic experiences, and cardiovascular adaptations.
In step 4, the step will be a class discussion, and in this portion of the workshop, students will be able to meet together in a big group and talk about what they learned in the specific small groups. By doing so, this will give exposure to all students with the topics that were discussed in the small groups, helping them in the future. Sample questions that could be asked would be like, was a topic or fact that you found particularly interesting, or how can the school better help support students with mental health struggles?
Lastly, here are some benefits and challenges associated with our program and some final thoughts about our research experience. Some of the benefits we found were that this program could increase awareness of mental health and wellness. It could promote specific mental health resources at Chapel Hill High School and as it is available to students. It could give adolescents an expanded skill set for navigating their overall well-being. It could also reduce the stigma surrounding mental health and create an atmosphere of open dialogue amongst students and faculty. It can also uplift the youth by providing a space for them to speak without fear of repercussions. One of the problems we thought might arise when implementing this program was that students may get bored and lose focus given the length of the workshop. Some potential solutions we came up with in hopes to combat boredom was to make their experience exciting and memorable by encouraging them to take breaks from their phones and engage in mindfulness. You might also encourage participation by providing giveaways or other contests and allowing students to hear from fellow adolescents. Also, the event may be held over a series of days in order to make the material more digestible and enjoyable for students. This event may also be moved virtually if COVID precautions call for smaller gatherings. So in summary, from what we have observed from our research and discussion with adolescents, we have gleaned that there are numerous problems facing adolescents that need to be addressed. The overarching theme that we found was that there is a causal relation between the COVID-19 pandemic and a rise in anxiety and depression amongst students. Based on these observations, we developed an outline for students for wellness programs that can be easily accessed and implemented within schools. Due to the fact the majority of adolescents spend extensive periods of time at school, we hope that this program will be widely received to encourage overall well-being amongst adolescents. Thank you.